Hi, and welcome to VYAPT Growth Series Season 3, Episode 19. This specially curated platform helps you to understand the growth prospects of the industry through leaders. In our growth series today, we have with us Mr. Vishal Sharma, ED and CEO of Godrej Industries Limited chemical business. Vishal is driven by strong focus on financial performance and is passionate about value creation for all the stakeholders. His passion lies in sustainability and driving innovation, and is a keen observer of economic and geopolitical developments across the world. Join me to welcome Mr. Vishal Sharma. Namaskar,
Thank you,
Vishal.
Pankaj.
Welcome to VYAPT.
Namaskar. Great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for taking your time to be in VYAPT Growth Series, and it's just a pleasure to have you on our platform. So we'll start with our first curiosity, and our first curiosity is around the growth strategies for the chemical industry.
Sure.
So,
I think,
um,
yeah,
yeah, please.
go on, please. Go on. Go on, please, after you.
Yeah, so my question is, what growth strategies have been most effective in establishing a strong foothold for the chemical industry? And you can help us in terms of, what are the chemicals you're dealing in your present organization where you're heading?
Sure. Yeah, I think that context is important, Pankaj, because, chemicals are the mother of all materials. Let's put it like that. And it's a very, very wide spectrum. You have hundreds of thousands of chemicals out there. So the business that I represent, I would define that as the oleochemical business. That's the primary base chemistry that we make. Oleochemicals are basically made from vegetable oils. That's why they are green, they are sustainable, they are renewable feedstock. And then, of course, using that we make surfactants, and then we go further downstream and make specialty products. And recently, we've also got into certain biotechnology-based products, biosurfactants and probiotics, and we are expanding that portfolio also as we go forward. So, in a nutshell, it's oleochemicals, it's green, it's sustainable, it's renewable. That's what we are focused on. And I personally am very specific in positioning our company as a green chemistry company, right? So petrochemical based products or fossil fuel based products are typically non-renewable. What we do is 100% renewable, in a 5-year cycle at max, which is palm oil, and a 1-year cycle at max, which is mustard. That's what we use primarily. So that's just to set the context. Now coming to the growth strategies that are used that we are using in our industry and using in our company. Um, it's not very different than what most companies would use. The difference lies, of course, in terms of the materials that we buy and the products that we sell and the end markets that we cater to. So, number one, as we look at our business from a growth point of view, it's very important for us to make sure that we are playing in the segments, in those end markets, which themselves are doing well. When you're playing in growing markets, you're bound to grow. If you're playing in declining markets, you're going downhill. It's very difficult to go up from there. So that's the first point. So we did a strategic exercise last year. We spent 5-6 months doing it with a team of 18, 20 people, and we clearly defined the 7 segments that we are going to operate in. So I won't get into too much details right now because it won't be relevant. But I think choosing the segments that you're going to play in is very, very important from a growth point of view. You choose the wrong segments, you'll go in the wrong direction. So that's point number one. Point number two, the segments that we chose, we ensured that these are large enough in size to give us significant growth for the next decade at minimum, and in many cases for the next 25 years. So, take for example, I'll just give one example there. Take the paints and coatings industry. That with the construction that's happening in our country, and we are primarily India based business. We've got 30% of our revenues outside India, but 70% is inside India. The paints and coatings industry is just exploding given all the construction that's happening and all the infrastructure that's being built in the country. So that became a priority segment for us. So that's just an example I'm giving of how you choose a segment, and the size is massive. So we are running a current market share of less than 3%. Even if I take my market share to 10%, I already triple my business, and then the market would already have grown by then. So that's number two. Number three, which is very commonsensical, is you got to go and win new customers. I think a lot of businesses and a lot of companies miss tracking this metric. And then you stay stuck with your current customers. Then, if your current customers grow, you grow. If they decline, you decline. But I think keeping your customer portfolio fresh and always bringing new customers into that pipeline and adding new customers to your base is very important. So that's something I'm personally very focused on. And since I've come in, we've actually started measuring that in a very, very strong way. Fourth is innovation, which, if you ask me, is the lifeblood of any sustainable long term. You can sell the same product and make money on it for some time. You can't do that forever, because either someone's going to copy you, or someone's going to make something better, or you're going to get disrupted. Yeah, which is a very fashionable word nowadays, anyway. Uh, so we have actually doubled the size of our R&D team, primarily focused on developing new and innovative products for the segments that we are focusing on. So at this point in time, it's a combination of all these. Of course, the most obvious thing is talent. You got to have the right people to execute your whole strategy and drive your growth. It's not just the sales and marketing. You need everybody on the back end, because a salesperson can go and make a customer commitment. That commitment has to be delivered. You can fail once, you can fail twice, you won't get a third chance. So it's a combination of all these, I would say, Pankaj, that we actually leveraging to drive consistent growth. And touch wood, we are growing strong double digits this year and building a very strong pipeline to grow even faster into the future.
That's so wonderful to hear from you, Vishal. My second question comes from the first question itself. When you talked about building a green chemistry company, how can we drive sustainable business growth, which I'm sure which you're already doing, and are there any emerging trends or areas of focus you foresee driving growth?
So one, I think so there are two trends which I'll call out. The first trend is green sustainability. The whole world's talking about it. If you have, if the viewers have been tracking the COP meetings that have been having, COP, there was one in Paris, then there was one in Sharm el Sheikh in Egypt. The latest one, if I'm not mistaken, was somewhere in Europe. I forget now. Uh, so there's so much activity and talk around sustainability, and this is a massive trend. So you look at every FMCG company, you look at every B2B company, you look at Tesla as an example. Tesla's around sustainability. It's a nice car. Okay, whoever's driven it, it's a nice car. Though I will say it's not as nice as a standard internal combustion car, because it's quite bumpy, the EVs, given the configuration that they have. But it's about sustainability. So sustainability is a massive trend at this point in time, and any company that wants to be around 20 years from now, it needs to think about how it can be sustainable, because beyond a point, the consumer and the market will probably stop accepting products that are not sustainable, or products that are, let's say, negative to the environment, have a negative environmental impact. So I think that's one. The second key trend that's cropping up continuously is what I would call as being value accretive or being value creative. Now, I'm not using words like more efficient. I'm not using words like products that can be, help the buyer be more productive or be more optimized. I think I'm capturing all this in the umbrella of being value accretive. You have to make sure you're bringing something to the market which is creating value. Every customer, every consumer, every buyer is looking at this. What more am I getting? And if they are not going to get anything more, they won't give you a chance, because they're already using something. They won't switch. I think this is a trend that we are seeing much more strongly in the last 5, 8 years than we saw in the past. In the past, consumers were much more open to switch. I think now we are seeing they need a reason to switch. Without that reason, they are not switching. So we can talk of five trends, but I think top two, I would actually call these out. And again, out there, that's why I mentioned we as a company, one, positioning ourselves as the green chemistry company. Two, spending a lot, investing a lot in R&D and D and innovation, because you got to bring newness into the marketplace. You don't bring newness, it's going to be difficult.
So you just talked about two three things wherein you are actually focusing on primarily from sustainability point of view, and you also talked about the 70% of your business coming from India and 30% from outside. So one of the major things which around the world people are talking after sustainability is actually employment across the globe. You go in any country, I'm sure you must be visiting a lot of countries, and any country you go, people are talking around employability, and so does India. So, looking at the diverse market you cater to, how crucial do you consider, uh, you know, the adaptation of localization of products to generate further employment? And there's a sub question to it: is that are there any specific technological advancements that have significantly contributed to industry success?
So let's take these in two parts, because they are a bit counterintuitive. Uh, so let's just talk about the localization and employment angle first. So absolutely right. I think COVID was a big wake up call for companies that had, let's say, one or two mega plants somewhere in the world. And the typical choice of those mega plants was the lowest cost center. Yeah. So I need to make a product. Where can I make it in the world at the lowest cost? I'll put up a big plant there, make half my global volumes, and just ship it out from there. Because logistics was reliable, sea routes were established, everything was going fine. COVID struck, your cross-border movement slowed down. Your plant production itself slowed down, because in many cases plants had to shut. In many cases, the labor was not allowed to come into the plant. You could bring only a certain number of people in, and the whole world was flying material from one place to another. So I think the whole concept of globalization and centralization of supply chain has actually changed significantly post COVID. Companies are now really thinking how to de-risk those mega plants, which is why you find a lot of the investments in China that companies were originally anticipating, those have slowed down significantly now. Companies are going to other countries now, even if it's higher cost, because it's no longer only a cost criteria. You need supply security. What's the point of manufacturing lowest cost if you ship the product out? Plus, the geopolitical issues that have cropped up in the last 3 4 years are much, much more than what we saw earlier prior to that. That's become an issue as well. So companies are being very careful, making sure that they have their plants or manufacturing located in places where they are geopolitically comfortable. Because if you're putting in $25 million or $50 million or $200 million, you want to put it somewhere where your investment is safe. You don't want to put it somewhere where your investment is risky. So these are driving localization. Plus, there are many countries which in the past were very comfortable importing everything, and then they realized, like, take the whole Middle East, which was dependent on oil. Oil prices go up and down. Their local populations don't have enough employment. The Middle Eastern countries, now take the GCC for example, they are laying down laws where if you're not manufacturing locally, it's going to be very difficult to sell to the local state-owned corporations. So you're going to have to localize. So the point I'm making is there are many factors driving localization, not just one. Yeah. So typically, in my experience, the mantra has always been make where you sell, buy where you make. That's the most efficient model to have. And I can see companies going there right now. And I think that is going to drive employment by itself. See, no company is going to make investments just to drive employment. There has to be a win win. The company's got to win as well. So typically, there are three main stakeholders there. The company's got to win, the government's got to win, and the local community's got to win. That's when investment comes in. And I think the forces that I mentioned earlier are actually driving all of these now, yeah, and creating win-win situations. So I think that's what is happening from an employment linked to localization perspective. Let's come to the second point that you mentioned now, which is, are there any emerging technologies? uh, it'll be very difficult to call out any single technology, but there's a lot of advancement happening, and most of it is happening around speed at which you can make a product. So, and I'm talking of the chemical industry specifically. I'm not going to go beyond, outside that. If a particular product used to take, let's say, 2 days to produce because you need reactions, and if you can now get it done in 1 day or 1.5 days, that basically means you've just increased your productivity or your capacity by 33%. That is massive. So those are the kind of technologies which need different kind of catalysts that are being developed, or let's say being focused on. I would call that one. The second very important one is digitalization. In the past, we used to call it automation, which was moving from a manual method to a automated method. I think from automation, it's quite quickly moved to digitalization. So when we actually say digitalization today, the automation is already included inside that. The digitalization part is now only that you can manage the entire process remotely, you can manage the entire process digitally. You now have massive plants producing, thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of tons a day, run by just 40 people or 50 people. And those people are not walking around the plant. They are sitting in control rooms with large digital panels, tracking every part of the operation, measuring temperatures, pressures, productivity, flows, viscosities, etc., and just making modifications as needed. Um, the third progression in technology, I would say, has been on the safety side. See, the chemical industry has historically been known to be a hazardous industry. I think that's changed quite a lot, though unfortunately in the last couple of years and at least in the last 6 months in India itself, we've had a few incidents, very unfortunate incidents where companies didn't take adequate safety precautions. But in general, I would say a company who's willing to focus and spend the time and energy on safety, there are enough technologies today and enough methods and mechanisms to run a plant at a 99.999% level of safety. Yeah, and practically assured that nothing goes wrong ever. So these are the three comments I would make on the technology side.
Vishal, you rightly talked about a number of things, wherein we need to take precaution to ensure that, our plants are safe and we give a, a, a good life to the kind of people who are working for the organization and building the organization for the next level of growth. Uh, we talked around, the kind of job opportunities the particular chemical industry is catering to. We talked around innovation, and we also talked around the sustainability factors. After this, we'll move on to our specially curated round. We call it as flip round, wherein the host becomes guest and the guest becomes host. So you can ask a question to me, has to be answered in 30 seconds time.
Absolutely. So, Pankaj, from your experience as a strategy consultant, what are the most critical strategies or initiatives that you typically advise your clients to future proof their businesses? So, not currently, but future proof their businesses so that there's a sustainable business they are building.
I think most of the answer for this particular question has already been given by you in all the three answers which you have shared. But one thing is pretty sure. When we serve Indian clients, primarily the clients who are more of generational in nature. Okay, we find that one of the things you can't escape today is digitalization. Okay, so there has to be digitalization for the growth of that. That's one. Second important part, for the kind of products and services you are catering to, you can't sit on your products and services that this is what is selling in the market today, I'm fine with it. You continuously have to innovate on newer products and services, what we call it as foreseeing the future and being the nimble organization. Because uh, today your services and products may sell like hotcakes, but what if after 6 months or 1 year time there's a disruption in one part of the world which is actually impacting your business, and then you start innovating for the newer product or the services. So I think these are the two things which we generally advise to our clients, that if it is going very very good for your organization, it's a time wherein you start building your new product and services so that the same could happen in the future as well.
Yeah, the nimble word is very, very important there. And thank you, Pankaj. I just got some free advice with your answer.
Thank you so much, Vishal, for this particular question. I move on to our next round, which we call it as learning on the go. A lot of business discussions have happened with you, with such a seasoned, person like you. And I would like to move on to a more, impactful question from the person point of view. Can you narrate an incident that has been an incredible source of learning for you? And I would like to ask this question from a lot of student community who would ask, who would like to ask this question to a leader. Probably because many of the student community, their students are very very ambitious. They want to achieve a
Right.
lot of things in such a short span of time. Any advice?
So I'll come with the advice at the end, but let me narrate an incident first. And before that, let me just give a concept. The concept is be a continuous lifelong learner, and please be very humble always. Yeah. The smartest person is the one who knows that they don't know anything, and the flip side of that is the stupidest person is the one who believes that they know everything. Okay. So now let's come to the particular event. So I'm going back to 2009 when I got my first international assignment. I was overnight, due to certain organizational changes, asked to take charge of Southeast Asia. My boss just called me and said, "You need to get on the next flight to Singapore. You need to come here. We'll meet for a day, and then we're going to Bangkok. We're going to announce you as the leader for Southeast Asia along with India." So I was naturally, like you said, young people, very excited, want to move fast. I was like, wow, this is a fantastic opportunity. So we went, did everything, and I took charge. Now, the first day meeting with my Thai team in Bangkok, in the Bangkok office, the meeting started at 9:30. By 12:30, I kind of realized that there's only one person in the room who's actually talking, and that was me. And everybody else is just, with a sullen face, just listening. And I thought something's gone wrong. This is not normally how my teams behave. So we went through the rest of the day, and I finished the meeting early now. By 2:30, I said, okay, let's wrap up. We'll carry on with the rest of it tomorrow. Then I was thinking, what happened? I've not done something right, probably. So I called my HR head and I told him, listen, Kuntanan, something's gone wrong today. I'm not sure what. And he said, no, 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 Mr. Vishal, everything is okay. Nothing has gone wrong. I said, listen. And then I said, okay. I took him into my room now and I shut the door and I said, listen, this is between you and me. I know something's gone wrong. It seems like I've done something wrong. Please help me. I need your help here. This is the first time I'm running a business outside India. I'm used to managing Indians. I have tried to work with you all the way I work in India. It's very clear it's not working. And then he said, you want the truth? And I said, yes, please, I want the truth. He said, you're a very bad man. You have no respect for people. You have no manners and you don't know how to communicate. I don't know how you have been given this position. And I was like, wow. So I said, okay. I said, I hear you. Can you now please tell me specifically? And he started from 9:30 and told me, you did this. Someone said this, you reacted like that. Do you think we are all fools? Do you think this is the way? So after 30 minutes, I was totally shaken up, but I was extremely appreciative and I thanked him and I said, please allow me to think about this. Tomorrow 9:30, I promise you, you will see a different man. So that night, the internet was there that time. I went, studied Thai culture, learned what their mannerisms are, how to communicate, etc. And next day, 9:30, I went back. The first thing I did was apologize to the whole team. I said, I'm sorry. I shared my history and my background, how I've grown up in the corporate world, what India is like, how you have to struggle and fight to, grow in your career. And I told them I thought I would behave the same way. I realized it's wrong. Give me a chance, please. I will change. I promise you that. Uh, and I took things forward from there. Things worked very well. In the next 2 years, we were a success story. But that event, that incident, made me realize if you want to build an international career, you're going to have to be very, very agile behaviorally. Okay, and that's a big, I mean, these are competencies we are talking about. Um, because when you go to Australia, it's again totally different. You can't behave in Australia the way you behave in Thailand. If you go to Europe or the US, again, it's totally different. So you got to switch on and switch off certain patterns in your mind of behavior because the same style just won't work. You have to be highly adaptable. And I think Even if you talk of India itself, the way you work in South India, you can't work in North India. It just won't work. North Indians, I mean, with all respect to everybody, are by far more outspoken. They are a little more aggressive. They are a little more combative. South Indians, by nature, are a little more reserved, and they would accept the boss as a boss. Not everyone does that. So I think that's been a massive learning for me. So you said some piece of advice, to the viewers. I would only say the things I started with. Please be humble always. Be open to learning from everywhere, every place, everybody, all the time. Be a continuous learner. If you want one secret to success, it is that. Be humble, learn, and you'll automatically do things better as you learn. Yeah. But if the day you start thinking you know it all, that is the beginning of the end.
That was a wonderful piece of advice coming from you, Vishal, and thank you for the incredible story which you just narrated, which definitely helps us to understand about how different cultures behave and how we have to accommodate with different cultures to be an international organization. I'm sure many of the organizations who are working in India and want to grow internationally, and many of the leaders who want to grow internationally, would definitely take this advice positively and would work towards their attitudes and behaviors so that they are successful in their life. Most importantly, thank you so much for the kind of strategy and the narrative you talked around the chemical industry. And I definitely liked when you talked about the green chemistry company. And I wish you all the best for taking the organization for the next level of growth. Thank you so much for being on our platform.
Thank you, Pankaj. Pleasure to be here. And I hope this was useful to your viewers as well. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Bye bye.